Origin of the Nephilim. When men began to multiply on earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of heaven saw how beautiful the daughters of man were, and so they took for their wives as many of them as they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not remain in man forever, since he is but flesh. His days shall comprise 120 years. At that time, the Nephilim appeared on earth, as well as later, after the sons of heaven had intercourse with the daughters of man, who bore them sons. They were the heroes of old, the men of renown. Warning of the flood. When the Lord saw how great was man's wickedness on earth, and how no desire that his heart conceived was ever anything but evil, he regretted that he had made man on the earth, and his heart was grieved. So the Lord said, I will wipe out from the earth the men whom I have created, and not only the men, but also the beasts, and the creeping things, and the birds of the air, for I am sorry that I made them. But Noah found favor with the Lord. These are the descendants of Noah. Noah, a good man, and blameless in that age, for he walked with God, begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. In the eyes of God, the earth was corrupt and full of lawlessness. When God saw how corrupt the earth had become, since all mortals led to brave lives on earth, he said to Noah, I have decided to put an end to all mortals on earth. The earth is full of lawlessness because of them, so I will destroy them and all life on earth. Preparation for the flood. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood, put various compartments in it, and cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you shall build it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make an opening for daylight in the ark, and finish the ark a cubit above it. Put an entrance in the side of the ark, which you shall make with bottom, second, and third decks. I, on my part, am about to bring the flood waters on the earth to destroy everywhere all creatures in which there is breath of life. Everything on earth shall perish. But with you I will establish my covenant. You and your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives shall go into the ark. Of all other living creatures, you shall bring 2 into the ark, 1 male and 1 female, that you may keep them alive with you. Of all kinds of birds, of all kinds of beasts, and of all kinds of creeping things, 2 of each shall come into the ark with you to stay alive. Moreover, you are to provide yourself with all the food that is to be eaten, and store it away, that it may serve as provisions for you and for them. This Noah did. He carried out all the commands that God gave him. Then the Lord said to Noah, Go into the ark, you and all your household, for you alone in this age have I found to be truly just. Of every clean animal, take with you 7 pairs, a male and its mate, and of the unclean animals, 1 pair, a male and its mate. Likewise, of every clean bird of the air, 7 pairs, a male and a female, and of all the unclean birds, 1 pair, a male and a female. Thus you will keep their issue alive over all the earth. 7 days from now I will bring rain down on the earth for great flood. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters came upon the earth. Together with his sons, his wives, and his sons' wives, Noah went into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Of the clean animals and the unclean, of the birds and of everything that creeps on the ground, 2 by 2, male and female, entered the ark with Noah, just as the Lord had commanded him. As soon as the 7 days were over, the waters of the flood came upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, it was on that day that all the fountains of the great abyss burst forth, and the floodgates of the sky were opened. For 40 days and 40 nights, heavy rain poured down on the earth. On the precise day named, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of Noah's sons had entered the ark, together with every kind of wild beast, every kind of domestic animal, every kind of creeping thing of the earth, and of every kind of bird. Pairs of all creatures in which there was a breath of life entered the ark with Noah. Those that entered were male and female, and of all species they came, as God had commanded Noah. Then the Lord shut him in. The flood continued upon the earth for 40 days. As the waters increased, they lifted the ark so that it rose above the earth. The swelling waters increased greatly, but the ark floated on the surface of the waters. Higher and higher above the earth rose the waters, until all the highest mountains everywhere were submerged, the crest rising 15 cubits higher than the submerged mountains. All creatures that stirred on earth perished, birds, cattle, wild animals, and all that swarmed on the earth, as well as all mankind. Everything on dry land, with the faintest breath of life in its nostrils, died out. The Lord wiped out every living thing on earth, man and cattle, the creeping things, and the birds of the air, all were wiped out from the earth. Only Noah and those with him in the ark were left. The waters maintained their crest over the earth for 150 days, and then God remembered Noah and all the animals, wild and tame, that were with him in the ark. So God made a wind sweep over the earth, and the waters began to subside. The fountains of the abyss and the floodgates of the sky were closed, and the downpour from the sky was held back. Gradually, the waters receded from the earth. At the end of 150 days, the waters had so diminished that in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountain of Ararat. The waters continued to diminish until the 10th month, and on the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains appeared. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the hatch he had made in the ark, and he sent out a raven to see if the waters had lessened on the earth. It flew back and forth until the waters dried off from the earth. Then he sent out a dove to see if the waters had lessened on the earth. But the dove could find no place to alight and perch, and it returned to him in the ark, for there was water all over the earth. Putting out his hand, he caught the dove and drew it back to him inside the ark. He waited 7 days more, and again sent the dove out from the ark. 601st year of Noah's life, in the first month, on the first day of the month, the water began to dry up on the earth. Noah then removed the covering of the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was drying up. In the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah, "Go out of the ark, together with your wife and your sons wives. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you, all bodily creatures, be they birds or animals or creeping things of the earth, and let them abound on the earth, breeding and multiplying on it." So Noah came out, together with his wife and his sons' wives, and all the animals wild and tame, all the birds, and all the creeping creatures of the earth left the ark, one kind after another. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and choosing from every clean animal and every clean bird, he offered holocaust on the altar. While the Lord smelled the sweet odor, he said to himself, "Never again will I doom the earth because of man, since the desires of man's heart are evil from the start, nor will I ever again strike down all the living beings as I have done. As long as the earth lasts, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease." Covenant with Noah. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fertile and multiply and fill the earth. Dread fear of you shall come upon all the animals of the earth and all the birds of the air, upon all the creatures that move about on the ground, and all the fishes of the sea. Into your power they are delivered. Every creature that is alive shall be yours to eat. I give them all to you, as I did the green plants. Only flesh with its lifeblood still in it you shall not eat. For your own lifeblood too I will demand an accounting. From every animal I will demand it, and from man in regard to his fellow man I will demand an accounting for human life. If anyone sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God has man been made. Be fertile then, and multiply, abound on earth, and subdue it." God said to Noah and to his sons with him, "See, I am now establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that was with you, all the birds and the various tame and wild animals that were with you and came out of the ark. I will establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all bodily creatures be destroyed by the waters of a flood. There shall not be another flood to devastate the earth." God added, "This is the sign that I am giving for all ages to come, of the covenant between me and you and every living creature with you. I set my bow in the clouds to serve as a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow appears in the clouds, I will recall the covenant I have made between me and you and all living beings, so that the water shall never again become a flood to destroy all mortal beings. As the bow appears in the clouds, I will see it, and recall the everlasting covenant that I have established between God and all living beings, all mortal creatures that are on earth. God told Noah, "This is the sign of the covenant I have established between me and all mortal creatures that are on earth." Noah and his sons. The sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from them the whole earth was peopled. Now Noah, a man of the soil, was the first to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of the wine, he became drunk and lay naked inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness, and he told his two brothers outside about it. Shem and Japheth, however, took a robe, and holding it on their backs, they walked backward and covered their father's nakedness. Since their faces were turned the other way, they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah woke up from his drunkenness and learned what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves shall he be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. Let Canaan be his slave. May God expand Japheth, so that he dwells among the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his slave." Noah lived 350 years after the flood. The whole lifetime of Noah was 950 years. Then he died. Table of the Nations. These are the descendants of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, to whom sons were born after the flood. The descendants of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Mesheth, and Tyrus. The descendants of Gomer: Ashkenaz, Rephath, and Togarmath. The descendants of Javan: Elisha, Tarshish, and Kittim, and the Radanim. These are the descendants of Japheth, and from them sprang the maritime nations in their respective lands, each with its own language, by their clans within their nations. The descendants of Ham: Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The descendants of Cush: Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Rama, and Sabteka. The descendants of Rama: Sheba and Dedan. Cush became the father of Nimrod, who was the first potentate on earth. He was a mighty hunter by the grace of the Lord, hence the saying, "Like Nimrod, a mighty hunter by the grace of the Lord." The chief cities of his kingdom were Babylon, Erech, and Akkad, all of them in the land of Shinar. From that land he went forth to Ashur, where he built Nineveh, Rehoboth, and Calah, as well as Rezin, between Nineveh and Calah, the latter being the principal city. Mizraim became the father of Ludum, the Anakim, the Lebabim, the Naphtuhim, and the Baruthim, the Calsuim, and the Cappatorium, from which the Philistines sprang. Canaan became the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and of Heth, also of the Jebusites, the Amorites, extended from Sidon all the way to Gerar, near Gaza, and all the way to Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, near Lasha. These are the descendants of Ham, according to their clans and languages, by their lands and nations. To Shem also, Japheth's oldest brother, and the ancestor of all the children of Eber, sons were born. The descendants of Shem: Elam, Asher, Arpachshad, Lud, and Aram. The descendants of Aram: Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Arpachshad became the father of Shelah, and Shelah became the father of Eber. To Eber 2 sons were born. The name of the first was Peleg, for in his time the world was divided, and the name of his brother was Joktan. Joktan became the father of Almodad, Sheleph, and Haramaveth, Jerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Tikla, Obal, Abimal, Sheba, Orpher, Heliva, and Jobab. All these were descendants of Joktan. Their settlements extended all the way to Sephar, the eastern hill country. These are the descendants of Shem, according to their clans and languages, by their lands and nations. These are the groupings of Noah's sons, according to their origins and by their nations. From these the other nations of earth branched out after the flood. The Tower of Babel. The whole world spoke the same language, using the same words. While men were migrating in the east, they came upon a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to one another, "Come, let us mold bricks and harden them with fire." They used bricks for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the sky, and so make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we shall be scattered all over the earth." The Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the men had built. Then the Lord said, "If now, while they are one people, all speaking the same language, they have started to do this, nothing will later stop them from doing whatever they presume to do. Let us then go down and there confuse their language, so that one will not understand what another says." Thus the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the speech of all the world. It was from that place that he scattered them all over the earth. The line from Shem to Abraham. This is the record of the descendants of Shem. When Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of Arpachshad, 2 years after the flood. Shem lived 500 years after the birth of Arpachshad, and he had other sons and daughters. When Arpachshad was 35 years old, he became the father of Shelah. Arpachshad lived 403 years after the birth of Shelah, and he had other sons and daughters. When Shelah was 30 years old, he became the father of Eber. Shelah lived 403 years after the birth of Eber, and he had other sons and daughters. When Eber was 34 years old, he became the father Eber lived 430 years after the birth of Peleg, and he had other sons and daughters. When Peleg was 30 years old, he became the father of Reu. Peleg lived 209 years after the birth of Reu, and he had other sons and daughters. When Reu was 32 years old, he became the father of Serug. Reu lived 207 years after the birth of Serug, and he had other sons and daughters. When Serug was 30 years old, he became the father of Nahor. Serug lived 200 years after the birth of Nahor, and he had other sons and daughters. When Nahor was 29 years old, he became the father of Terah. Nahor lived 119 years after the birth of Terah, and he had other sons and daughters. When Terah was 70 years old, he became the father of Abraham.